Hello, my name is Evelina Silveira with Diversity at Work Communications Training. Today, my focus is on mature workers. Now, mature workers are a vital part of our labor force these days. We want to be able to retain the talent as much as possible. Now, sometimes mature workers also have a bit of a self-sabotaging attitude that can create some problems for them in the workplace. Now, I'm going to outline a few of them. So just to give you a sense of what I come across in terms of my work as a diversity consultant, just to keep in mind, if you do find yourself with some of these behaviors, there might be quite an impact on you in the workplace and how you are received and perhaps even promotions. So, the first one is that mature workers can at times have this attitude that everything that was done the old way is the right way, and things should be remain the same. The problem with that is that they're not going to change. That they're not going back, and not everything about the way things were done in the old days was the right way. And to categorize as everything that's modern today as inefficient or wrong really takes away from the fact that we have made a lot of gains in the workplace. And consider just the attitude that we've made with respect to mature workers, that we're actually trying to retain their talent instead of trying to get rid of them as we did before with mandatory retirement practices. So that in itself is worth considering. The other is this idea about demeaning younger workers. And let's face it, some of the habits that younger workers have are definitely quite contradictory to the habits and attitudes that mature workers have been raised with. This doesn't mean that it's appropriate to label young workers as lazy or unengaged or uncommitted or any other kinds of things. Um, because you don't want them to be doing the same thing. They have a different attitude about work, and it's you could debate whether it's the right one or the wrong one, but it works for them, just like your attitude about your work and the way you approach work works for you, and they may think the same about you. But putting them down or their generation is not going to score points with you and your coworkers or the management. Look at instead what they bring to the workplace and what you bring into the workplace, and consider what kind of collaboration you may have together. I mean, I've gone back to the workplace many times. During the time I've had my business, just to see more about what it was like and to try out different projects and different kinds of skills. And one thing that I know for sure is that there are lots of opportunities when the right climate, culture, workplace culture is cultivated for mature workers to work with younger people. Time and time again, I would learn new things about technology from the younger workers, and they would often come to me for some advice about how to handle workplace issues, or even how to edit a letter, or some advice about business etiquette. So it can be a win-win situation for all. Now, being resistant to change. This is sometimes this I come across a fair bit, especially in my cases where I'm working one-on-one with bullies, individuals who just are so insistent that everything be the same, and as a result, they can escalate some situations. Sometimes it means that they might get angry or use intimidation tactics because they are so upset that things have changed. If you want to stay relevant in the workplace, you have to accept change, and that can be in terms of learning new skills, learning new attitudes, going back to school, signing up for those courses that are being offered to improve your skills. So take advantage of those while you can. Um, the other thing is mature workers have a tendency sometimes, not actually, I shouldn't say a tendency sometimes. I'm going to say that if you've been in the workplace for a long time and you really don't want to be there, you might have a negative attitude. One of the ways that this may show up is when someone asks you for feedback or suggestions and you decline that opportunity. I would suggest that you chime in and give your suggestions when you're asked to, and maybe even when you're not, but in a respectful way. Um, you know, most people, most managers will understand that mature workers carry with them historical knowledge of an organization. And this can be very useful moving forward. And it's really incumbent upon them to ask you for information or suggestions, I should say, and feel and to contribute, because that way it shows your relevance. It shows that you're still alive, because sometimes people have ageist attitudes about older workers, and that you're engaged and that you care about the place. So use those opportunities to show that you are just as important as the rest of the people there, and that your age can actually be an asset and not a deterrent. Now, I was good, also would like to mention that there are ways of being able um, to actually turn negativity around in the workplace when it comes to mature workers, and the attitudes that people have, that mature workers might not really like younger people, and vice versa, and that younger people feel that older workers, mature workers, are burnt out. My suggestion would be that try to engage with younger workers as much as possible. A lot of them are looking for mentors. Sometimes they might even be looking for a pseudo relative at work, or whatever. And that can be very comforting for both of you without having it to be any kind of a boundary issue at all. And what I would have to say about that is ask younger workers about their attitudes about things, and be prepared that those attitudes and answers that they may have will be fundamentally different than yours. However, give them the opportunity to be heard, because younger workers, they love to be heard and listened to. So engage them in conversations, and you'll be able to learn a little bit more about them. And perhaps some of those biases that each of you share about one another could be diminished in some way. Lastly, I would say that increasingly with mature workers, we find that there is also the issue of ageism in the workplace. And I can tell by my work that most people are quite aware of racism and sexism in the workplace, and are um, quite committed to calling it out when it happens. But there are aspects of ageism that never seem to get addressed in the workplace, and that can also create microaggressions in the workplace towards people who are more mature. I'll give you an example, very subtle things, but think about the impact of, let's say you're 65 years old and you do a good job, you're committed to the workplace, and people keep on asking you, when are you going to retire? Or they make comments about you being burnt out just because you have a critical opinion about something, or they leave you out of conversations because they figure that you're not going to be around anymore. And the list goes on and on. So as a mature worker, it's incumbent upon you to also challenge the ageism that happens in the workplace. You owe it to yourself and to future workers and current workers. The reality is we are living longer. A lot of people are not ready for retirement. Mature workers have a lot to contribute, And you can challenge those generalizations and stereotypes about workers, especially if you're not fitting one of them. Um, so we need the other thing that comes up an awful lot is this idea that mature workers don't have energy, and job postings that require energetic employees. Sometimes that's just a pseudo word for younger. So challenge that as well when that happens. That as long as you are productive, you're contributing, you're getting along and doing what needs to be done, you are energetic. You're just as energetic as the other people are as well. So mature workers are an integral part of our workforce, and it's incumbent upon us to find ways of retaining their talent and recruiting their talent as well. And also for mature workers, keep in mind some of the ideas that I've talked about that could be working against you in the workplace. Take an inventory of some of the attitudes and comments that you have made and see if you fall into that category at all. Because together we can make it a better workplace for everyone. My name is Evelina Silveira, and I hope you'll visit my website, www.diversityatworkcommunications.com. Bye-bye.